Welcome to 10 Minutes Today, your favorite thrice weekly show right here on YouTube. We come to you every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday with a random discussion meant to invoke some thought and bring some joy into your life. My name is Jake. That's
I'm
Matej. You can follow us on Twitter, pop or pop. I don't know which way it goes. And yeah, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what you think. Matej?
Today we are talking about echolocation, specifically those that of a human variety. It's pretty interesting. Researchers from the Ludwig Maximilians Universität in Munich, so I assume that would be the correct pronunciation. They published results of a small study in which they trained both blind and sighted people to deduce the size of a room using sound. So it's very preliminary. They're not using it to navigate complex areas yet, which actually the one blind person can do, and that's where they started this from. But basically what they did was they put subjects into an MRI, put headphones on them, and told them to make different noises, clicks, hums, coughs, whatever. And so they digitally recreated a church that was nearby with different amounts of reverb and delay and all that kind of stuff. And so every time the person would make a sound, they would hear an echo. And they started off with some very basic training, like no echo, so it's a very, very small room, to a very, very large room, so tons of echo, tons of reverb. Right. And they said which one's smaller, which one's bigger. So they started off like that. They increased the difficulty, obviously, making the differences between the two sizes smaller and smaller. What the interesting thing was, the people that did the best were able to notice only a 4% difference in room size. The middle of the road were about 6 to 8%, which is still impressive as hell to me, room size. And the low ballpark was around 16% difference in room size. And the interesting thing is that actually ends up being very similar to what a visual deduction would be. So somebody that could see physically a room size differences, notice on the same level as these people that were doing it with the clicks and hums and stuff.
So, a lot of questions get raised.
Sure.
I haven't seen this study.
Okay.
Were they saying, give me the square footage of this room, or is this a big, medium, or small room?
No, so they were saying they would play one, click, 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 I'm going to play you back this sound. And then now we're doing a different room. Click, 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 I'm going to play you this sound.
And which room is bigger?
Yeah.
Well, that's
so
absolutely ridiculous.
Only a 4% difference, though.
You can't compare that, but Matej, you can't compare that to sight. Because, of course, the longer it takes for the click to get back at you, the bigger the room is.
Okay, but a 4% difference in a room size.
So a room that was 4% bigger, they could tell
that it was
bigger.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where it's interesting, with the small amounts. Obviously the big, a tiny no click and a big reverby one,
right.
That's no brainer. But another thing, because they were in the MRI, they were studying the brain, naturally, and seeing how it reacts. And the two places in the brain that were triggered were interesting. One place was the visual cortex, so the part people see with. So obviously this didn't happen with the person that was blind.
Right.
But the people that could see, when their eyes were closed and they were hearing that click back, the visual part of their brain was being stimulated. So I guess they were actually literally imagining the room size, or maybe subconsciously, and that's what's helping them deduce the room size. And then the other part that was weird was the motor cortex, so the part that controls movement. They thought it had something to do initially with the tongue, so it's obviously doing that. But when they said, okay, don't click, we're going to play a fake click, and it's going to come back to you.
And it still happened.
They still happened. And then they removed the click completely and just used the echo, and it still happened. So they're thinking that the visual and the motor both have something to do with deducing the size of the room.
Okay.
So what I want to ask you is, I find it interesting that the brain can learn these new skills when circumstances demand it.
Sure.
What do you think are the limitations to the human brain? Because when somebody is blind...
That's a bit of a leap.
It is.
Okay.
It's a bit of a leap. But when somebody's blind, this one guy that the whole reason they started building this study on, they took a blind guy, he's literally walks around town going... and doesn't walk into shit because he can click and it bounces back and he can notice tiny differences.
Right.
That's amazing. And he says the only reason people that can see can't do it is because they can see.
Well, exactly.
So they don't need
You don't practice it and you don't learn it. And you don't need to.
I wonder what is our limitations and how do we know what our limitations are because we don't need to do something. You know what I mean?
Well, my answer to that would be a throwback to our last topic on AI, that our limitation comes in our brain's processing power. So you're talking about tapping a stick, and this blind man, I'm assuming, can tap his stick or click and know exactly how far this wall is from him. Well, if the day that we start combining our brains with computer processing power, which, Elon Musk did an interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson on Star Talk, I think it was actually just this week. So I guess 2 weeks ago at the time that this posts. And he doesn't think it's far off. And a lot of researchers at MIT also think that we're not far away from the super wealthy being able to afford just small computer chip style placements in your brain that
so
can,
you can
increase
the web,
your... Well, no.
Or
It
just...
increases your brain's processing power so you can think faster.
Okay.
So when you get to that point, this blind guy, like if he has the capability to do that, I think it would be the same thing as sight.
Sure.
Because if he can think 1,000 times faster, right? If they install this into the mechanical, and I'm assuming the audio parts of his brain, which is a huge task, and I don't think that's going to happen. Like something like that won't happen in our lifetime. But he could effectively see through sound.
I think
if he can think as fast as a computer.
Well, I think it can happen in our lifetime, and it is. There's another guy, I can't remember his name. I'll put a link in the description once I figure out who it is. But he developed a vest that had little vibratory motors all through it.
I remember this.
And basically, he put it on somebody, and you can feed in information that vibrates on your body in certain patterns and stuff. And subconsciously, those patterns can actually be transmitted into auditory waves in your brain. So you would literally hear in your mind. It would be like you are hearing something
that you're feeling
through feeling.
Right.
How crazy! And they were able to tie that to. So first they did it with deaf people, and the deaf people would literally be able to hear. Like they could face the wall, turn around, face the wall. You could say 10, and they would just go, hold up 10 fingers. Like, oh, you just said the word 10. So they can literally hear through feeling. So I don't think it's that far off. I don't think it's that far off on a biological scale. From a human life perspective, I don't know that in our life. I think we're going to see people using like computer software and computer style components implemented in the brain. I don't have much of a doubt on that, but it's the actual capability of that technology. I think in its preliminary state, it's going to be more geared towards intellectuals who there's no reason for the average person to want this yet. Because most people spend their time not thinking anyways, right? So there's no need for us to think faster and the ability to think more. And realistically, the way it works is like a supercomputer. If it can think 1,000 times faster than a human, right? In 1 hour, that if you have that capability, that computer processing in your brain, surgically implanted, but if you have that processing power, 1 hour is the equivalent of thinking for 1,000 hours. Yeah.
We would go crazy. Like the average person, even super intelligent people, would go crazy with that kind of thinking power, because think of how long you have to spend thinking like, shit, what am I going to wear this morning? You're looking at 2 shirts. Well, you could have that, you could look at your shirt and think so fast that in the time you're walking to your shirt, you know what you're wearing, you know what you're eating for lunch, you know everything you're going to do at work, you know what you're going to do when you get home, and you can be solving some crazy quantum physics problem.
Hey,
1,000 hours of thinking in 1 hour.
That helps with that short attention span thing, I suppose.
It does, but
is it
it's also
7 to 8 minutes or something like that.
It's also quite contradictive though, because if you have a short attention span, that's what I mean. Is think of how crazy you'll go if you have the ability to think this fast, but you have nothing to think about. What are you going to start thinking on? And that's why I think.
There's a lot to think about.
Well, I've read a lot about people who actually think that it might increase suicide because you've thought all the thoughts you have to think, and now you're thinking about things so complex and so theoretical that'll never come to fruition.
But maybe it will with that kind of time invested in it.
Potentially, that's all the time we have. Thank you for watching 10 Minutes Today. Come back every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to like us on Facebook. We have to start saying that again.
On Facebook page.
Like us on Facebook. Send us messages on Twitter.
Website coming soon.
Check it out.
Bye.